Three separate times during this movie, I turned to myself and thought, okay, this has to be the final fight. And three separate times I was completely wrong in the best way possible because right when you think Furious has given you everything it's got, it just keeps going bigger, messier, more intense. Today, I want to talk about why this movie keeps topping itself and why that's exactly what makes it feel so different from everything else out right now. Okay, so let me back up. I had been waiting for this movie for a while. I saw the trailer months ago, and then I started seeing people from other countries posting their reaction, and honestly, I got a little jealous. I honestly thought it would come to the UAE around the same time. It didn't. It took longer than I expected, which genuinely surprised me. And when it finally did land here, it only had a handful of screens and a handful of show times near me. So the second tickets were up, I grabbed a seat for the very first show. I wasn't missing this. Quick version of the story because honestly, the story isn't really the point. A father named Wang Wei has his daughter taken from him. A journalist named Nevin is looking for his missing wife. Their paths cross and they end up fighting their way through a trafficking network together. That's it, that's a plot. Even the people who made this movie will tell you the story is thin. But that's not really a problem here, and I will get into why. Quick thing I want to clear up because a few people asked me this before I even sat down to watch it. Is this a Chinese movie or a Japanese movie? Officially, it's a Hong Kong production, but what I actually find kind of cool is how international the team behind it really is. The director is Japanese, so is the action choreographer, but the cast brings in performers from China, Hong Kong, Thailand, Japan, and even the US. So you have got a Hong Kong film being put together by a genuinely global crew. Honestly, I think that's part of why it doesn't feel like it belongs to just one country or one style. It feels bigger than that. The first thing that hit me, and I mean immediately, was how brutal the action is. Sitting there in the theater, I found myself thinking about two very different movies. It reminded me of The Raid, just in how relentless and intense the fighting is, and it also reminded me of Taken, mainly because of the father daughter setup driving everything. That combination is strange on paper, but it works. The fights are violent, they are brutal. There were moments where I actually flinched in my seat. Now, I want to be fair here because this isn't a complaint, but something I noticed. A few of the bloodier moments, especially some sequences involving the main villain, use CGI blood that stood out to me as a little obvious. The practical fighting itself is excellent. The gore effects in a few spots just didn't quite match the same level of realism. It's a small thing. It didn't ruin anything for me. I just noticed it. And here's something worth knowing. That rough, chaotic feeling in the fight isn't a mistake. It's international. The director has actually said he likes it when a hit misses, when a punch goes nowhere, because it feels more like a real fight and less like a performance. So when something looks a little messy on screen, that's not sloppy filmmaking. That's the whole style done on purpose. And speaking about brutality, I do want to say this clearly. This is an adults only action film. The violence is intense, it's graphic, and this really isn't something for younger viewers, just something worth knowing going in. Here's what actually stuck with me the most though. In most action movies, a fight scene is basically a highlight reel. It looks amazing, you clap, and then the movie moves on. The fight doesn't really change anything about the characters. Furious does something different. Every fight in this movie is actually telling you something about who these people are and how they are changing. The director has said he built the action around emotion first and choreography second, not the other way around. Sitting in that cinema, I could actually feel that. That's the part that makes this movie special. Two styles, one story. Here's where things get interesting. The two lead actors actually fight in completely different styles in real life. One has a background in wushu, which is fast and flashy. The other has a background in judo, which is about grappling and using an opponent's weight against them. Instead of just having two guys throw random punches, the movie uses that contrast on purpose. Early on, Wang Wei, the father, fights one way, but later in the film you can see him picking up the judo influence, learning it from Nevin. You are literally watching one character absorb something from another just through how they move. Nobody has to explain it to you. What impressed me most, honestly, was how real everything felt. I kept catching myself wondering how did they even shoot this? There are sequences where the camera weaves through the fighting in ways that seem almost impossible to plan, let alone execute. And the curiosity actually made me appreciate the filmmaking more, not less. Turns out the cast trained together for about a month and a half before filming even started. 6 weeks, and they did their own fights, no stunt doubles standing in for the hard stuff. The camera can hold on them in long, wide shots because there is nothing to hide. I will admit, this also made me a little nostalgic. I miss the days when action movies would show you the stunt work and the bloopers during the credits, the way old martial arts film used to, especially the classic Jackie Chan movies. For a film like this, with this much real physical work in it, I would have loved to see even few minutes of how these scenes actually came together. One of the most impressive thing about this movie, especially towards the end, is how much is happening inside a single frame. There were moments where I genuinely didn't know where to look because three or four things were happening on screen at once. And I mean that as a compliment. The choreography is so layered, and I'm pretty sure I will catch new details on a second watch. The movie is also really good at escalation. More than once, I found myself thinking, okay, this has to be the final battle. And then the story kept going. Then another huge set piece would show up. Each one felt big enough to be the climax of an entirely different movie. And yet, Furious just keep building past it towards something even bigger. Without giving anything away, I have to talk about the police station sequence at the climax. It's one of the most ambitious action scenes I have personally seen in a long time. Most action movies sticks to a formula, one person against one against many, or two people fighting side by side. This scene does something different. You have got multiple fighters all with different goals, and it's not always clear who is actually on whose side. At first, you might assume certain people are working together, then things get messier, more unpredictable, and honestly a little chaotic in the best way. I won't tell you how it ends or who makes it out. I will just say it's one of the most memorable sequences in the entire film, and it's worth experiencing for yourself. And if you want proof of how much work went into it, this one sequence alone took 18 days to film. 18 days for one scene, that's a kind of detail that tells you this team wasn't cutting corners. The emotional core of this movie is really about people trying to get their loved ones back, and that's what keeps all this fighting grounded instead of feeling empty. But I found myself wanting a little more, especially around the character of the father. There are small hints scattered through the film about his past, moments involving medication, moments of physical struggle that suggest there's more to his story. I would have liked a bit more time spent on who he was before all of this started. It's not really a flaw, but just something I was curious about while watching. Quick side note for the action fans watching this, there's a crossbow wielding character in this movie who felt very familiar to me the moment he showed up. If you watch a lot of martial arts and action films, keep an eye out because there's a good chance you will recognize a few faces in this cast from other major action movies. I really want to push this point. This is a movie you need to see on big screen. The scale of these fight scenes, the way they are staged, the sheer amount happening in every shot, all of it hits so much harder in a big screen than it ever will on a laptop or a TV at home. If you have the option, don't wait for streaming on this one. So here's why I think Furious feels different. Most action movies want you to say, wow, that looked cool. This one wants you to feel something. The fighting styles shows you who the characters are. The real training and the real stunt makes you believe what you're watching. The escalation keeps stopping itself right until the police station sequence, and every hit along the way is building towards something. I walked into that first showing excited, and I walked out impressed. Every punch in this movie is doing double duty. It's action and its character at the same time. That's rare. So if you're asking for a number, I would put this a solid 7, but honestly, the amount of care in that choreography and how much better this plays on a big screen earns it one extra point from me. Call it an 8 out of 10. I'm keeping this spoiler light on purpose because I genuinely think you should experience this one for yourself, ideally on the biggest screen you can find. If you have already seen Furious, let me know in the comments what stood out to you, and if you haven't yet, go watch it.